Chapter 34. Night. I was staying late at his office. It was now or never. I had created a shadow clone, handed him the white-haired girl, and asked him to give her to Night while using transformation jutsu. I then sneaked back to my residence, laying on my bed. Miria was asleep, snoring and muttering about how he'd save people. I chuckled, closed my eyes, thinking of the future. With her rewind Quirk and Kai's overhauls Quirk, I'd get a lot of money. It would be better if I found a way to get their ability or clone their Quirk somehow and sell it instead. I thought. It wasn't totally impossible. I was currently at level 3 in the system. The worlds that ranked as second-level realm weren't just magic worlds. Those worlds' technology was more advanced than my current world. Instead of electricity, they use magic. I opened the system, feeling curious a bit about it. Since I was a mage at the first circle, I didn't want to rush into this level without mastering the mana and wuxia things. Looking through the system level 3 chats, I found someone selling an interesting device. Magical VR Helmet version 1.0.2. Insert in you in magical worlds with infinite mana where you can train your spells in SK*LLS. The changes don't apply to your real body, but muscle memories are transferred. The time flow 5 times faster. Can replace sleep. Plus magical VR helmet, dash 10,000 coins. If the description was true, then that world was advanced enough to achieve what I wanted. However, not everyone wanted to sell all of their knowledge. I held a device, which happened to be a normal-looking black sleep mask. It didn't look advanced at all. I put it on my face. The view in front of me changed. Your attributes had been uploaded, said a mechanic voice that rang in my ear. I was in a very realistic dream, standing in a white land with a screen in front of me. It had parameters and pain inhibitors parameters. Choose a location. There was a location option, so I ended up choosing a volcano. Choose monsters to fight against, can create one from memories or imagination. There were pictures of goblins, orbs, and so many. I put my hand on a goblin. The view suddenly changed to that of a natural place, full of trees. I started walking around. I didn't believe that I was in my room since I was walking on realistic ground. I put my hand on the tree, feeling the texture to the most minor detail. Why did I have the impression that magic worlds are less advanced than electric worlds? A green monster appeared behind the tree, holding a sword in its hand. I smiled. I found a good way to practice my magical spell, my martial arts, and all without harming myself. Most would say it's useless since I wouldn't train my muscles. But the most important muscle in any fight was the brain. XXX. While I was immersed in my magical VR world, my shadow clone, who had taken a different appearance, stood in front of Night Eye's door, holding the little girl on his back. The shadow clone knocked. Without waiting for a reply, he entered, finding Night Eye sitting in front of his laptop. This girl had been abused by the Yakuza, overhaul. They take a blood sample every often. She's 4. You're a licensed hero, so she's your problem now, said my shadow clone as he placed her on the table. Night Eye looked at the shadow clone, blinking as many times as possible. What the? Night Eye muttered. You have more to say. He then looked at the white-haired girl. Why don't you sit first? No chance, said the clone. He then left Eri, got out of the office, and closed the door before vanishing. The chakra from the clone went back to me, and I had a vision of what happened. While I got my memories back, I was jumping between virtual trees, dodging arrows. I extended my hand forward, summoning a screen that made everything pause. At the bottom of the screen, there was a log out option. When I pressed it, darkness took over my vision. I put my hands on my eyes, and I could feel the sleeping mask. I pushed it up. Good grief, I said as I sat up, wondering how much time had passed. To me, more than 6 hours had passed, and I didn't feel sleep-deprived at all. I looked at my fists, clenching them, feeling the muscle memory being installed in them already. My phone rang. It was Night Eye calling. I picked up. Hey, Sensei. Do you know what the time is? Come to my office. We need to talk. At this time, I asked. My heart raced. Did he see my future this far to today to know what I have done? I heard you have a little sibling. I figured out you can be good with kids, said Night Eye. So he must have had the wrong impression. That was good. Kids? I asked. What's the matter? Your friend dropped a girl on you. I was pretending ignorance. Not a friend exactly. Someone dropped a child who had been treated as a lab rat, he said. I need someone who can care for her until I finish up some deal. Did she tell you that? I asked, feeling a bit relieved that I wasn't caught. I was questioning my life choices. I won't deal with gangs ever again. I've seen her future a bit. At the time, she'd tell this story. But since she's young, she'd forget anyway. Just come over to my office. Also, is Mirio awake? No. Let him sleep, he said. I smell favoritism. I replied, feeling quite offended. He didn't say anything and hung up. I took a few deep breaths, placing my hand on my chest, my heart pumping blood like it never did. The risk I had taken went smoothly. I'm now a few $1,000,000 richer as Money Pocket, and no one found out what I did to Airy. Moreover, I have DNA samples of Airy, Overhaul, and if possible, I'd try to steal some from Night Eye. I stood up, wore my clothes, and got out. Taking a taxi, I headed to Night Eye's office. I picked up a few candies and other foods kids liked on my way. When I was about to knock, Night Eye's voice came before. Get inside, he said. All right, I replied. He looked at my hand, to the bags, saying, I knew you fit the job. So, where's the girl I'm supposed to babysit? I asked as I got in. Behind Night Eye, Airy, who was 4 years old, took a sneak peek at me with her red eyes. She seemed to be wary a bit, but she approached me slowly. I raised the bags, saying, Do you want to eat? She nodded with a small smile. It's okay, Airy. You can trust him. He is a future hero, Night Eye said. The girl, who was different from the other timeline, came toward me, took my bag, and took the candies and chocolate out, eating happily. I sat in the office and looked at Night Eye. I then looked at the girl, saying, So, what's her story? Night Eye proceeded to tell me about her, how she'd been taken into the lab after her grandfather got sick, and how she said that a Yakuza from Kai's team saved her and took her out. He stressed how she said the trials were painful. Kai Chisaki is under watch. Because he was a very careful man, the police didn't get a warrant. But with Airy, we will. But first, we should take her out of this city into a safe place, Night Eye said. So, you were saying that you won't move against that villain, I said, pretending to be angry. Let's go there and kick his ass. I was talking as if I hadn't crushed Kai's arms or pinned him into a funny pose. Night Eye smiled. Airy has a rewind quirk, and it's very dangerous as it can reduce anyone to non-existence. I contacted a friend of mine, a teacher in UA, currently the homeroom of Class 3A. Only him can train her to control her quirk. How did you know that? I asked. I've taken sneak peeks into the future, Night Eye. At one vision, I was reduced to nothing when I awakened the girl. I opened my eyes widely. What an amazing quirk, can rewind people into nothing. He nodded. I had a question. Can she revive the dead? I don't think so, as her quirk seems to be working on living beings, he replied. And you can imagine what chaos it could cause if she could. Also, I didn't look that much into the future. He had a point. If people learned that someone could revive the dead, they'd lose their mind. Who wouldn't want to have their dead loved ones back? I would have asked if she could restore All Might to his peak. But that question would arise the question of how did I know something like that? Suddenly, a hand grabbed me from my coat. I turned to see Airy looked at me with her big eyes. What does she want? I wondered as I tilted my head. Thank you. What's your name? She asked. Kenshiro Monero, I said, smiling so that she wouldn't see me as a threat. Thanks, Kishiro Nissen, she said in the cutest tone. I was feeling some sort of sweetness in my chest. What's that feeling? It's warm. Placing my hands on her ribs, I lifted her small body. Aren't you acting like a cute little brat? I asked as I tickled her a bit. She giggled. While she was laughing, I noticed that Night Eye had gloves around her hands, making me appreciate his attention to details. At least, there was no risk of me turning into nothing. I'll leave you with her for a while, he said. Turning my head to the sun's direction, I thought that I should call Nijire. She could help me babysit this girl, and it could be a nice date. Chapter 35. It was morning, and I was standing in a public park in my civilian clothes, waiting for Nijire. Next to me was Airy, a 4 to 5-year-old child now with new clothes and a hat that covered her head. The last thing I wanted was for Kai's people to find her randomly in a park. But since Night I had already seen the future of Airy, I didn't think that something bad would happen. Nijire had been working at an agency on the other side of the city, yet we hadn't met because we were both busy. When I asked her out today, she said she would ask her mentor if she could take a day off. I smiled when I saw a blue-haired girl walking in a light blue dress toward us. She smiled and waved her hand at me, running. I held back my urge to grab her cheeks as she stopped in front of me. It's been quite a while, she said. It hasn't been a week, I replied. Your sense of time is messed up. Didn't you miss me? She asked. I smiled. Maybe. You tell. Instead of answering with words, she opened her arms and hugged me, placing her head on my shoulder. I patted her on the back, chanting some verses in my head to stop the biological reaction from rising as her chest crushed against mine. But it failed, and the spear rose. Nijire pulled back and smiled, her cheeks turning a bit red. That was one hell of a strong hug. She looked at the girl who was hugging my leg. Who is she? Nijire asked as she led her face closer to her. This is Ari, I said. Night tasked me to babysit her. Do you babysit during the internship? Nijire asked. We didn't study that in our hero course. She had been rescued from the mobs, I replied. I'm with her until someone takes her. The little girl opened her mouth. Will you come with me when they take me? I patted her on the head, saying, Big brother has a job. But as soon as I finish it, I'll visit you. She smiled widely. When I turned to Nijire, I found her staring at me with stars in her eyes. You both look cute, she said. I had expected her to ask questions about the girl or make some comments on how she was rescued. After all, Nijire had annoyed some girls in our class by making comments on their quirks, causing them to stay away from her. But she didn't on Ari. She seemed to be considerate enough now. So, where do you want to go? I asked her. Let's ask Ari first, Nijire said as she squatted next to me and lifted Ari. It seemed to be a good idea to bring her along. Let's play some games, Ari said. We then started walking silently. I don't think we ever had a calm date like that, Nijire commented. Really? Most times we're working out together. Other than that, it's rare. The first time we went to train together, it was attacked by the giant villain, she said. And you started that speech with him. I giggled, remembering how I was negotiating with the villain and talking sense to him. When he had calmed down, MT Lady had taken him down, causing public damage and getting forgiven because she looked hot. Yes, I remember, I replied. You two are dating? Ari asked. Nijire nodded at her with a smile. So that's what married people do. You two married? She asked innocently. I didn't find it appropriate to educate a little girl at her age about relationships. No, we play a lot. That's it, I said. What games? She asked. We're discovering, I replied, only for Nijire to give me a small fist on my shoulder, her cheeks turning a bit red. It was fun to see her acting like this. Here. Nijire placed Ari on the ground when we reached the kids' playing zone. Ari ran. I wrapped my arm around Nijire's shoulder. You know, it's a crime if you are not careful with your words, Nijire said. Do I deserve a punishment then? I replied with an amused tone. Bad boys need to get punished, she said, holding my chin. And my imagination went wild. By that, I didn't imagine spending time in jail. More like Nijire wearing a latex outfit and acting like Midnight. Being a cultivator makes one's imagination almost real. A fluffy kiss awakened me from my imagination. Nijire was done with the kiss and stopped standing on her toes. Want to grab a coffee? I asked. She nodded. Then we bought coffee and sat next to each other, catching up and spending time like old days before the internship. The time went smoothly, and Ari kept playing around while we were watching. After a few hours, I got a letter on my phone. Bring Ari and come back to my office. It was night-eye. So it's time to get her back, said Nijire as her head appeared between mine and the phone. When she made eye contact with me, she made a broad smile. I patted her hair a bit before saying, Yeah, guess his friend is here. I turned to Ari and asked her to come. The young girl then came running toward me. Lifting her above my shoulder, I turned to Nijire and said, Do you want me to accompany you? It's my day off. I guess I'll follow you and see how you work, she said. Okay, I didn't mind. Night I had seen the future, and he didn't say something like not to bring Nijire with me. XXX. I entered Night Eye's office with Nijire and Ari on my shoulder. In front of me was Night Eye and a middle-aged man with long black hair, black sleepy eyes, and black attire. A long bandage covered his neck area like a scarf. If I wasn't wrong, this was Aizawa. Welcome Nijire Hato. I have already informed your mentor that you are with me, Night Eye said. Whoa, she exclaimed. You've foreseen this already. He chuckled. Why don't you and Kinshiro sit down, while I and Mr. Aizawa talk with Ari? I placed Ari on the back and gave her a small push. So, this is the girl you want me to take care of, Aizawa said as he looked at Ari. Only with your quirk, you can help her, Night Eye said. That was true. Aizawa's quirk could disable anyone's, so that's why he was suitable for training kids with dangerous quirks since he could control them and prevent them from harming themselves and others. True, he said. I've already had my fair share of experience dealing with kids with troublesome quirks, he said as he slightly smiled at Ari. Kid, from now on, you call me uncle. She nodded slightly. But don't forget, Night Eye said, we need her testimony about Kai before she leaves. I don't want to leave, said Eri, eyes getting cloudy with tears. I want to stay with big brother and sister. I turned my head to Nijire, seeing that she too had tears *mulating in her eyes. Don't worry, Eri. I'll visit you sometime, Nijire said. Don't worry, said Aizawa to Eri. I'm a teacher in their school. You'll see them plenty. Wait, you're a teacher at UA, Mr. Aizawa? Asked Nijire. I've never seen you around. That's because I'm the homeroom teacher of 3A, he replied. Oh, I see, she replied. Eri nodded, clenched her fists, and smiled. So going with you means I'll be able to play with them. Yay. Aizawa nodded. Guys, it's not time to celebrate yet, said Night Eye as he lifted his head. Kenshiro, you can deal with this. I tilted my head, confused about what he meant. Everyone, take a step back, said Night Eye, ignoring my curiosity. Something broke the window. A green grenade was flying in front of my eyes. Because of the improved reflexes I had, I could clearly see it. My heart almost stopped. A grenade. Really? Chapter 36. Mentally cursing Night Eye, I extended my hand and caught the grenade. My aura left my hand, creating a small barrier around it. I didn't know I could do that, but it seemed like supporting a weapon with aura. This time, however, I used aura to defend the grenade. Will this hurt? I asked Night Eye. He didn't say anything. When I turned my head, the son of the beach nodded. Boom. A loud sound was released, followed by a small explosion, which I could press into my mana and absorb. The firepower didn't do anything, but my arm felt shaky a bit. Thank you for saving us, Kenshiro-san, or as you prefer by your hero name, Aura, Night Eye said with a hint of sarcasm as he went to the window, staring below it. I knew it's not time to make an argument. The first bomb to make us feel afraid. The second one is a stun grenade, Night Eye said as he held an object coming to the window before throwing it back outside. I walked to the window, and I heard a loud explosion. When I looked down, I saw a bunch of men in black. In their lead was a man with no arms. Kai. Minuta's balls were still attached to him, and so a part of the flower. Give Eri back. She's the granddaughter of my OJ. She was kidnapped last night, shouted Kai. I won't tolerate an authorized kidnapping. Eri looked at the window and climbed, yelling. He is lying. He hurts Eri. Kai is a bad person. Eri, come back and don't make me angry. Your grandpa wishes for you to come back, said Kai. Night Eye turned to Aizawa and said calmly, he's a few tough guys with him. We may require your help in this fight. I'll do my part, said Aizawa, his scarf seeming to come to life. No need for you to fight, just assist Kenshiro and Nijire. They both have strong quirks, said Night Eye. Nijire put her finger under her lip, saying, but my mentor would get angry if I do it without asking her permission. Don't worry. I'll take responsibility, said Night Eye. I glared at him. You won't. I didn't skip the double meaning. Then you will. Night Eye teased with a smirk. I nodded. Nijire seemed to blush as she cupped her face with her hands. Seriously, was she flattered in this situation? Or could it be that she was embarrassed? After exhaling a large sigh, I opened the window and jumped from it, landing on the ground. A couple of men surrounded me. Kid, move, or you'll get hurt, said one of them. Inviting with open arms, I replied, be my guest. I'd like to see how I'd get hurt. With this, he replied as he pointed his arm at me, seeming to be about to shoot something. But nothing came out of his hand. The Yakuza man looked at his hand, confused. Another man was in ropes, and he pointed his hand at me. Is it only me? No. My quirk isn't working as well. They spoke their confusion about why their powers weren't working. Using body flicker jutsu, which didn't require me weaving a hand sign, I appeared in front of them and held them from the collar each, lifting them off the ground. I looked at a bunch of Yakuza behind them. Some reached their pocket to grab their guns. Did Kai lose his mind to attack heroes just to bring Eri back, even though his arms were severed and he had no power? Before the Yakuza guys could do anything, I released my red aura and surrounded my arms with it, before throwing the two guys forward. They flew like baseballs with stunning speed, hitting a mass of the Yakuza behind them. One of them aimed his gun at me. I should be bulletproof at this point with my aura, but I didn't want to test the damage. And I didn't get the chance to. A yellow shockwave passed by the man who held the gun and those behind him, sending them flying. I turned my head, seeing that Nijire had her hands extended. She sighed in relief. I had to admit, having her as a spinner wasn't a bad deal. As for Night Eye, he was leading the team. I should have faith in him for now. Clenching his jaws, Kai yelled at his men, "What are you doing?" "Shoot at the window. If that man blinked, you'll regain your quirks." Using another body flicker jutsu, I appeared in their middle. The first one to move will get their ass handed to them, I said, taking a fighting stance, red aura surrounding me. Opening my hands, I pushed them to the side, casting a huge Buddha palms. Everyone who got hit by it was knocked down. The only remaining were Kai and a few of his henchmen. You just got lucky that we are not able to use our quirk. It's not a fair battle. And you call yourselves heroes, said a masked man next to Kai. I was quite surprised by his audacity. Did he want a fair battle? Since when was the legal side of society fair? Have you ever seen policemen giving the drug dealers a fair battle because it was the right thing to do? Oh, I get it. You think this would work because you saw me in the sports festival giving up to give Mirio a fair battle? I asked, forcing my face to keep a stoic expression. He nodded. I couldn't hold myself anymore. Haha. I laughed. Just wanting to tease Midnight gave people the wrong impression of me. Sure thing, mate. After I was done laughing, I pointed my hand at him, saying, I'm going to make it a 1v1 battle. And before he could utter a word, my aura turned into a fireball that hit him hard on the face. The only remaining one now was Kai. I stood in front of him, looking up at his face. Although he was taller, I felt more intimidating than him. I held him from the collar and brought him down. You're under arrest. Resist, and I'll use lethal force. You have the right to remain. Kenshiro, you're a hero, not a policeman. And this isn't America to tell him his rights, Night, I said. You just beat them while avoiding doing damage. Thank you for ruining my moment, Night Eye. Why you? Kai muttered angrily behind his clenched teeth. A good soldier follows orders. Thank you for not making us wait for a warrant, I said, smiling at Kai. I clenched my fists, punching him badly on his body, avoiding the face. The last thing I'd show was mercy for a child abuser, then I threw him down when he lost awareness. I then sat down and turned my head to the window, raising a thumb up. Eri smiled at me and gave a thumbs up back. Night Eye smiled, and Aizawa turned his head. They talked. Because of my cultivation level, I could hear them talking clearly. Those two have potent quirks. Especially Kenshiro, said Aizawa. I figured that out, replied Night Eye. He seems to have multi-quirks. Does he have any affiliation with that guy? Asked Aizawa. No. Mostly, the energy, which is his quirk, allows him to use both fire and lightning. You know what's funny in this? What? He can train by sitting on his ass and control his energy. And no, he's no more than one quirk. You're both wrong. Kenshiro is a very hardworking person. He spends hours in the gym. Nijire defended my pride in front of them. What a nice girl. I think I should wife her up. But, is it legal? It's Japan. With parents' agreement, it could be possible. But again, am I allowed to own my house in the first place? I shook the idea out of my head. We're just saying he's potentials, Night Eye said. I think he's good, replied Aizawa to Night Eye. With his martial arts level and control, he could apply for an early license. I just sat there on Kai's back, pretending not to hear anything. But I couldn't hear anything anymore as the sound waves got mixed with the police car's sound. A few cars surrounded the location, got out, and took their guns, pointing them at the Yakuza on the ground. Standing up from Kai's back, I turned to one of the police officers and said, You have arrived late. Thank you for your hard work, Sir Night Eye's apprentice, said the police officer. On second thought, I had seen him during that time against the Ant-Man. I nodded at him before jumping back to the window I got out of, which happened to be on the third floor. I got inside and said, Still talking about me? Night Eye didn't say anything. We were discussing Eri's future, and now that Kai is arrested, things could go faster, he said. Eri ran toward me and gave me a hug on my legs. I'm going to miss you, big brother, she said, sobbing a bit. Me too. Promise you'll visit, she said. I couldn't resist while she gave me that teary look. Sure, I replied, patting her on the head. Thank you, she said as she turned and walked to Aizawa, holding his hand. Chapter 37. After the Yakuza gang was arrested, thanks to their leader's irrational decision, we went to the police station and reported what happened. Eri reported about what happened during her time with Kai. Although she was just 4 years old, she managed to crack enough sentences describing needles poking her repeatedly and Kai fixing her so that they could take more blood samples. In no time, the judge gave the police a warrant to go to Kai's lab and arrest everyone. All of this happened thanks to a young Yakuza man who saved Eri. A Yakuza man whose look I've taken. Poor guy. He would have a harsh time in jail for being a snitch. No need to feel mercy about children's abusers. But again, it was Kai and his lab team's fault. I thought. Because I had played Yakuza games in my previous life, I had an impression of them that they were nice people who liked to sing karaoke and fight against each other. What are you thinking of? Nijire asked me. Currently, we were outside the police station, waiting for our mentors and their sidekicks to be done with helping the police. We had grabbed a couple of ice creams, and we were eating. How crazy things have been lately. I replied. My mentor said it's normal to see such a thing as a hero. She once caught a group. You know, she said it's not appropriate to talk about that. Nijire replied. She then paused and shook her head. Totally disturbing. I don't want to know, I replied, leaning my head backward and sighing. I thought for a bit about Night Eye. He had foreseen most of this, hasn't he? Man, if only I had his power, or someone like me beside me. You know what I'd do. I'd foresee the financial market, especially the crypto, and see the currency that would bloom in the near future. It'd be like picking up a winning lottery game. Once in my previous life, a man turned $4,000 into $4 million through a meme coin. Another turned $10K into $150 million. This reminds me, I should turn the money I stole from the Yakuza into crypto and find a way to launder it. I thought. Also, $3 million is like 10,000 coins. Having more than 1 million coins means that I'm filthy rich, no? Suddenly, a smooth surface grinded on my lip. You had some ice cream there, said Nijire as she just licked the corner of my lip. Aren't you just cute? I replied, grabbing her cheek and playing with it. I decided to think about cloning Sir Night Eye later. Talking about clones, couldn't I send a shadow clone to school or use them to hasten my training progress? I thought as I held Nijire's hand, earning her smile as she looked at my hand. The mood was getting better until a face appeared from the ground. You had an eventful day without me, said Mirio. If I could stomp on his face at this moment, I would. But my foot would stop emptiness. Mirio, you're here, said Nijire. The two guys who like to give up. Haha. He laughed slightly, glad to see people I know here. Tamaki is here as well, said Nijire. He works in another agency. I know, I was planning on visiting him, replied Mirio. I was looking at him, not saying a word. What's the matter, Kenshiro-san? Said Mirio, smiling in a silly way. The moment you get out of the ground materialize, I'm going to kick you. I threatened with a bright smile. You know the bro code. Never ruin a bro's date. Since you can tell, Mirio smiled childishly. Let's play who can wait longer. Mirio, you can see, right, in your phasing state. I asked, grabbing my phone, modifying flashlight to max. I modified the flash. It meant that photons made contact with his eyes. Now if you think about it, Mirio wasn't totally invisible. You can beat him through sound frequencies that the brain finds annoying and destructive. You can take him down with a flash grenade, or with a really bad fart. Obviously. Here. I pointed my phone flash at him, activating it and deactivating it repeatedly. He had blue eyes. People like him were sensitive to light. He closed his eyes, seeming to feel pain. Stop it. It's not nice. He extended his hands to defend his eyes. Appearing from under the ground isn't nice either, I said, waiting for a chance to kick him. Okay, I understand. In response, Mirio sank in the ground. A couple of seconds later, he appeared next to a lamppost on the other side of the road. You seem to be dealing with children a lot lately, said Nijire. That was rich coming from her. Is someone feeling jealous? I replied, wrapping my arm around her, about to tickle her. She giggled. Count yourself instead of me. You're being a naughty girl, I said, feeling the urge to jump on her and kiss her on the lips. A couple of elders that passed gave us a glare of disdain and disappointment, which was ignored. XXX. Seeing Night Eye staring at the wall at All Might with his hands behind his back, I approached him stealthily. I held a hair from his head, saying, that's for making me deal with a grenade all of a sudden. I pulled the hair. Ouch. Night Eye groaned, but it didn't seem that he felt pain. So, this is the amount of your anger. The Yakuza got the worst of it. I replied. Also, how could I get angry when Sir Night Eye had a quirk that could generate tons of money if they knew how to use it correctly? Night Eye turned and stared directly at my eyes. By the way, I have a question for you. I raised my eyebrows. Where did you learn how to fight? Night Eye said, it takes a normal individual a couple of years to learn fighting like that. For someone who had awakened his quirk a season ago, I find it questionable. Are my martial arts that impressive? I asked, feeling flattered. Yes. My eyes allow me to record any move and memorize it. In short, I watched a lot of Steven Seagal and Bruce Lee videos. I said, saying half of the truth. I see. So there is nothing to teach you beside how to act as a hero. That's why I'm here for. I smiled. I put my hand on his shoulder and patted him. He sighed and smiled slightly. I was there to mass profit. Now I made it. I couldn't complain. Now, let's move on with the morning shift. Bubble Girl will take you with her, he said as he went in his office. What about you? I asked. I'll take Mirio with me. He replied. I see. Good luck, I said, knowing that these two had the same sense of humor. I then left the office. There was a theory I wanted to test before leaving. I crossed my fingers, creating a couple of shadow clones. Remind me to buy more chakra. But I think with the Uchiha's bloodline, my chakra had grown tremendously. Still, the more I can sustain shadow clones, the better. I looked at the clones and said, you know what to do, boys. I grabbed from the system 2 stones. One was a mana stone, and the other was a spiritual stone. I wanted to know if that would work, although it probably was unlikely. After all, working out with shadow clones won't gain you muscles. Cultivation trained the soul and body. As for mana training, it purified the mana from the stones with a breathing method and circled it through the body. If I could get purified energy directly, my training process could hasten. The boys nodded as they took the stones. They then vanished, like shinobis. Looking at my shadow clones departing, I couldn't help but believe how people view me. I looked badass. I nodded, approving my appearance. I then marched with Bubble Girl, walking around the city and seeing if there was any crime worth stopping or if anyone needed help. The city is calm surprisingly, I said. Bubble Girl crossed her arms. With the Yakuza family being taken down, the other mobs would calm down for now. The crime rate will drop a bit until the police get busy with something else. They then will resume their activity. And why is that? I asked. Criminal organizations work with each other. When one is down, the police will put the others on strict watch. It would be hard to operate under these circumstances. Turning my eye to the blue cute girl, her image changed in my head. How did she know all of this? Could she be a part of some criminal organization in the past? No, she didn't have to. Women, pretty ones in general, have influence to some degree in criminal organizations. If you don't have contacts in your life, get closer to a pretty social butterfly. I hope you don't know all of that for the wrong reasons. I said. Who knows? She replied, giggling as she joined her hands together. Suddenly I held my heart, my mana growing tremendously. A few memories from my shadow clone that I sent to train with a mid-grade stone came to me. I got the chakra with the mana back. My physical body didn't get stronger like it would when finishing training. But however, the mana was circling automatically in my body thanks to the experience. I breathed according to the young warrior method, and my mana stabilized around my heart. Shadow clone jutsu may not increase your physical strength, but it gave your body memory and energy to help it. Are you okay? Bubble Girl stopped to me. Yes, I replied. I was more than okay. I just found a way to hasten mana training while still being able to go to school. You didn't get injured, did you? She asked. No. I shook my head. I just hoped the clone that was cultivating chi didn't pop out now. She held my back and helped me stand straight. You aren't playing tough, are you? Since when? I asked, shaking my head. Then I started coughing violently. Another huge surge of energy entered my body, circling around my meridians. It was chi, which my clone was done cultivating. My dantian started expanding. I had a déjà vu feeling, telling me how to move the energy. So, training with shadow clones hastens my training and gives me experience and energy. I felt a bit tired. I wish I could just stay home and train and not use this. But I can't rest while knowing what future Japan has. I straightened my back, feeling great all of a sudden. Bubble Girl hit my back repeatedly. We should go to the hospital. I didn't argue this time. She seemed to be insisting, and I was curious about my health. Chapter 38. After checking with the hospital, the doctor said that I'm just a bit sleep-deprived. Sleeping a couple of days would fix it. Other than that, my body was more than healthy. He's got a point. Ever since I got into this town, I've been busy grinding, I thought. I wasn't a worshiper of the grind, but I did what I had to do to survive. When we left the hospital, I headed back to the agency. So, what do I do now? I asked. Bubble Girl smacked my shoulder, saying, You'll go to your residence and take a couple of days to sleep. But don't worry. Night I will understand. I'll tell him. Go and get some rest. I wish you were my boss, I replied, feeling something getting into my eyes as she said that. I was touched, seeing someone willing to let me skip work to sleep. An internship in this world was different from my previous life. She smiled as she stood behind me, pushing me to the door. Guess it won't be a bad idea. I mean, There wasn't much to do anymore since I had achieved more than I hoped for when I got into this city. I had Night Eye DNA, Kai's DNA, and even Ares DNA, and a few villains and $2 million worth in yen cash. I went to the residency earlier than everyone, grabbed a placket, and went through the market of world level 0. I bought a few chakra potions and absorbed them into my body. I checked on Stain's saliva product, and it seemed to be doing very well. There was a massive buy in them during these days, plus 150.000 coins. Anyway, I created a couple of shadow clones who would train my energy. After asking them not to bother me when I'm asleep, I closed my eyes. I found a way that allowed me to have my normal life and train at the same time without slowing down. Man, if I think about it, Night Eye could have been the richest man on the planet if he decided to become an investor. Is there a law that forbids you to use future vision in the financial market? I guess Night Eye is just too good of a man. With that thought, I ended up sleeping. My slumber took more than I had expected, around 18 hours of sleep. It was night. When I woke up and stretched my arms up, I turned to see Mirio snoring on the bed next to me. His blanket was off. I adjusted it before making my way to the kitchen, making some coffee for myself. I then went to sit by the window. Why is my head so clear? I thought. In the last month, the number of hours I slept didn't exceed 20. But I didn't feel anything the first couple of weeks though. I guess the only solution is to keep cultivating until I reach a level where I don't need to sleep anymore. After putting my coffee down, I crossed my fingers, dispelling the shadow clones I had created. Both energies got into my system, and my body remembered how to train them. So the process of training took around 30 minutes. This was a brilliant idea. Now, by the time of the cannon start, I'd be twice or thrice as strong as I had anticipated. All for one, against me, shall have no one. I checked my phone, finding that Nijire had sent me many messages. Are you okay? I heard you were sick. Nijire asked. Sorry, I didn't know you were asleep. Recover well. She typed again. You're not ghosting me, right? She typed. I could tell that she was worried and insecure. Are you cheating on me in your dreams? Puppy face. I chuckled, sending a message, just woke up. You need to learn patience sometime. Luckily, she didn't make more drama out of it. And so, I had the comfort of leisure training for the remaining 10 days without much conflict with my social or work life. During these days, I have been spending my time buying fire and lightning ninjutsu, plus chakra. Unfortunately, not many people wanted to sell their knowledge. Rare occasions don't happen often. If you want to capture them, you have to be a super lucky or super patient person who watches the market 24/7. With the passive income from my Netta's balls and Stain's saliva, my coins didn't decrease. By the end of my internship, I progressed into the 4th level of Earth Realm. My warrior rank was halfway to heroic rank, which should be stronger as twice or more than my current rank. And due to my mana reverses and VR training while I'm asleep, I managed to form my 2nd circle in magic. Also, my coins had increased by another 200k, thanks to my privilege and passive income. I was at the agency, standing next to Mirio, each one of us holding a bag. Night Eye patted his glasses, saying, I'll see you by the time you two get your license. Mirio, with tears in his eyes, nodded and said, I'll miss you, Night Eye sensei. Mirio was lacking in the fighting department. With Night Eye training him these days, Mirio experienced a huge improvement. I simply nodded, not knowing how to react. Am I supposed to cry? Sure, it was fun to have a bit of social life around me and not be locked up in my room, but everything has an end. Bubble Girl held my shoulder. What, not going to miss us? Looking at her, I replied, You are not going anywhere, are you? Who knows? I'm planning to go abroad, she replied. If I hadn't watched the show in my previous life, I would have believed that she was telling the truth. Don't forget to bring souvenirs when you come back, I replied. Don't worry, she's not going anywhere, Night Eye said. Sir. Bubble Girl turned to him and yelled. You didn't have to expose my future. Night Eye chuckled. These guys are nuts. I shook my head and smiled a bit. After bidding farewell, giving everyone a hug except for Mirio, I went to the train station with Mirio. We've learned a lot, said Mirio. We were sitting facing each other. I was crossing my arms, having a slight nap. Yeah, I replied. So, what will you be doing? He asked. Studying in the class next door, I replied. I'll visit you occasionally, he said. I could tell that despite his smile, he was hiding his tears. I sighed. Do it normally and don't appear from the ground. Also, if you see me having a good time with a girl, don't appear like that. Ha ha, he laughed, seeming to be amused. His laugh wasn't evil, but XXX. When I arrived back in my city to my house, I found my family waiting for me. My mom asked me how things went, and I said not much. She asked a lot of questions about what happened to the Yakuza that had been caught and if it's true that he had been conducting illegal experiments on a child. To avoid more questions, I simply replied that I didn't know anything. Mineta appeared downstairs. He looked at me. Something about him looked different than usual. The face that was full of life and dreams once was replaced by a face full of despair. Came in. Cough. I gargled a laugh before faking a cough. What's up, chicken? Apparently, after he lost his money, he learned pain. Nothing is up, he replied as he lowered his head and clenched his fists. Knowing that he would cry in front of our mom and may expose everything, I pretended to reach my pocket. I walked to him and put a stack of money in his hand. Here's some pocket money. Go treat yourself to something. The despair look was replaced. Mineta smiled, looking happy. While looking at his face, I wondered what impact he would make when he gets into UA now that his power got a boost. Is it? He asked, not believing what's in his hands. I nodded. Got a bit of cash for helping heroes. Turning to Mom, I said, I'll head first to my room. Mineta, we have a talk. I then went upstairs to my room and threw my bag there. I then sat down. Mineta entered after me. You took so long to find a client, he complained. I reached into my pocket and threw him a paper. When Mineta opened it, he read, Employee contact. For each ball Mineta produces, he gets $10. He lowered the paper and stared at me, yelling, the price was $30 last time. You even gave me a huge bonus. I wondered what his reaction would be to know that each of his balls is worth more than 100 golden coins, and they are in demand. I laughed. You don't want it. So be it. I then laid down, closing my eyes a bit. My little brother clenched his teeth. Why you? As I said, this is the price. I couldn't get you a better deal. I stretched my arms. I told them my brother wouldn't accept it. But they didn't care. You didn't disappoint me, Mineta. You prefer having only cheap pocket money than working hard and earning. I respect that. Tell them I'm more than all right with their deal, he said, his tone changing. So be it. For every 100, I get 1,000. By the end of the week, I'd be able to buy some Gucci in. From the kids' clothes store? I interrupted his self-talk. Anyway, I wonder, how do you deliver? The balls lose their effect after 24 hours, he said. They have a way to store them. Someone with a dimensional quirk gets them into a place that has no time. I replied, they're a bunch of crazy people who like to prank each other. I don't understand them, and you shouldn't even try. Could you introduce me to them? He asked. Well, he was trying to get rid of me so that he could take all of the profit for himself. I respect that. And lose my commission fee. I stood up, walking to him, placing my hand on the back of his collar. I'm the chicken that lays eggs, he spoke. That's why I'm feeding you. Be thankful. I lifted him off the ground, opened the door, and threw him out. Then I went inside my room and closed the door. If I wanted to make money through cloning Night Eye or his quirk, then there was only a person whom I knew that could help me. A blue screen appeared in front of me. I went to the friends list. Chat request has been sent. Look who finally has decided to show his face, came Orochimaru's immediate reply. Chapter 39. Look at who finally decided to show himself. I thought you were in a closed training session. I didn't expect to see you soon, said Orochimaru as soon as I sent him a chat request. I may not admit it, but I miss this bastard a bit. I'm still training. I just decided to leave things to shadow clones since they seem to accelerate things. I said, that's not a bad idea, but you would suffer some pain from the rush of energy. On the other hand, your body could learn from the clone's experience and cultivate the energy faster than before. He replied, I know. It also enhances the size of chakra. You may not know it, but it's a mix of physical and spiritual energy. So it increases when you cultivate as well. I see. I know that you are not here for a friendly chit-chat. Do you have more interesting stuff? Orochimaru asked, speaking business. I looked into my storage, to the hair samples of Kai and Eri. I then looked at my coins. They were still above 1,000,000. For now, nothing. I said, but I have a series of questions, if you don't mind. I obviously mind. Do you think I have time? He asked. Too bad. Remember the phasing quirk? I asked. Yes, he nodded. It's trash compared to what I can get. I smiled. I knew how to play on the nerves of the scientist. What did you want to ask about? He asked, seeming to realize that I have something with greater potential. Cloning. Cloning technologies, especially the quirk parts. Are you planning on giving up on our partnership? I don't plan on giving up on you anytime soon. I spoke. There is no way I give up on him. He's my factory. And he's a good brain. Then what do you need it for? There is a guy without an overpowered quirk. Something that allows him to predict future prices in the general market. I want a copy of him. Does it work in the system? He asked. Unfortunately, no. The system is installed in my eye. But I still need a guy like him by my side. I replied. In Japan, there is a story of a famous man from the samurai time, Munehisa Hanma. Hanma was a rice trader in old Japan. He was the first one to create candlesticks and analyze the chart of the market before it was known, a market before others knew how to manipulate it. That guy ended up with a $10 billion net worth by trading rice alone and earned a samurai title, plus the god of market title. With Night Eye's power and with the giant amount of money being exchanged in nowadays markets, I can get way more than 10 billion. It's not only rice that can be traded. There is gold, currency, crypto, and stocks. Night Eye wasted his potential on being a hero. Orochimaru sent a message. Obviously, I can't sell you my cloning knowledge. But I can recommend where you can get it. Where? I asked. Level 3 worlds. They're advanced enough. Someone can sell you a cloning machine for $500,000 with one-time liquid. The machine is $50K. The liquid is $450K for a person. He did have a point. After all, from those worlds, I got a sleep mask that transferred me into a virtual reality where I could train all of my SK*LLS without exhausting my energies and still get muscle memories after that. Did you use it? I asked him. And waste money and the chance for potential knowledge? No. Talking about cloning, where are you on the phasing Quirk project? I created a clone and started experimenting on how to move his Keki Genkai. I have managed to do some experiments on your friend and got the necessary cells. The Quirk has a weakness of potential death when metallizing instantly while being in an object, but warriors won't find trouble controlling it. I managed to trade the cells with a daimyo for a large gold mine. Now, it would be launched in the market a few months later. You son of a b, I clenched my fists. A gold mine? That's like having more than millions of coins if not more for free. Fufu. You were the one in a hurry. Glad I got exclusive rights. Fufu. Come on, can't you throw me some coins? You took 1.5 million. I haven't even made that back. I was just trying. No need to get fried up. Anyway, I'll contact you later. By the way, what kind of quirks were you talking about earlier? Nothing really. There was a guy who can modify anything he touches on a molecular level. What? He could reform anything that he touches, including living beings. He could even K*LL them, turn them into a bloody mess, and bring them back to life instantly. He could change the terrain. And he could fuse people into himself. You have it, Orochimaru exclaimed. For a crazy scientist, that quirk is worth more than all the gold in the world. He could clone Kai, possess him, and then fuse Madara's body to himself or modify himself. He could create special eyes by touching them. If Kai had half of Orochimaru's biological knowledge, he would have been able to modify not just people's bodies but their DNA and give them quirks if he desired. There was even the potential to change their species. Having a certain bloodline wouldn't be a trouble with overhaul. Let's not forget the battle applications. If he had a fight with any overpowered character, it's either him one-shotting them or them one-shotting him. I made a mocking remark. There is a chance to get it. Just enjoy your earnings from your exclusive 100% fasting power earning. When can you get it? He asked. Who knows? I mocked. I already have it. I laughed. The dude sounded like he was about to wet his pants. At any rate, Orochimaru seemed to understand the potentials. Since he was rolling in money right now, I decided to let him earn more before making a deal with him. I opened the chat for Worlds Level 3, worlds so advanced that they did use magic for everything. I left in the chat that I desired to have some cloning machine that's capable of cloning a human with a field. There were offers from different people who claimed to be archmages and tower masters. I chatted with one of them and asked how magical cloning would work. He said that I needed to place a DNA sample in it, place the liquid, and enter the regulations such as age and height and more. There was even an option to modify a certain characteristic. If the person you clone is a male, you could simply modify the chromosome and create a female. If you know biology, you could make a certain change in DNA sequences, which could mess up the quirk. You could also write the brain for loyalty beforehand to whoever they see when they wake up and have them get new memories if you know illusion magic, which was unnecessary since I had Sharingan. Night Eye is 2 meters already. Having his clone being a female would just attract attention, and having him as male will do that as well. I fear that if I modified the DNA, the clone wouldn't have the ability to see the future. I rubbed my forehead. Still, even if I get a clone, where would they live? How can I get them an ID? Forget it. Where would I place a cloning machine in the first place? I need a warehouse. But with Future Sight with me, I can control the market. Are you going to buy? Asked the mage that I was chatting with. For 50K, right? I asked. Originally, the price was 500K, but went lower after a negotiation. Just for you, he said as he sent me an exchange request. After confirming the order, I paid around 360K, thanks to my discount, and got a cloning machine with a liquid. They were in my storage now. Now time to think of a way to solve the problems I have in hand. Chapter 40. The most troublesome thing I encountered in my plan to become the most successful investor was figuring out where the hell I'd put the cloning machine. It's not like I could put it in my room where my mom cleans occasionally, nor in the basement where my dad has his man cave. I cupped my forehead with my fingers. I was currently on the school bus, heading back to UA after a long vacation. Was it even qualified to be called a vacation? It was more of an internship/business trip. I arrived at UA and made my way to class. On my way, I felt like I was about to be ambushed. When I turned my head, I saw Nijire opening her arms for a hug. As she wrapped her arms around me, I raised an eyebrow and smiled. Whoa, you make it seem like we haven't seen each other in a long time, I said. Still, I missed you, she replied. She was acting cute, right? I gave her a pat on the back to urge her to back off a bit, or I'd get a raging boner right there in class. Don't underestimate teenage hormones. She let go of the hug and held my hand as we walked to school. I'm glad it's over, she said. I thought you had fun, I replied. What's fun about it? Rio made me deal with paperwork, and I had to work from noon to night. Not to mention the press. It's annoying, she replied. I get what you mean, I said, not really understanding her. I had my shadow clone cover for me on some work days while I did whatever I wanted while disguised with transformation jutsu. We then entered the class. Tamaki was asleep at his desk. After giving Nijire a pat on the shoulder, I went to my seat and sat down. If there was something I missed, it wouldn't be my classmates, it would be the R-rated hieroglyphics on the board. What's wrong? You don't look happy, I asked Tamaki. He didn't raise his head. My teacher made me eat various things, he said with a disgusted expression. I'm wondering how long it's been since I had omelet for breakfast. Right, his quirk was about characterizing things he ate until his stomach completely digested them. I could understand if he complained about having 3 strange meals. Try a low-calorie diet. That way, your metabolism will slow down, I advised him. I'm already thin. You want me to vanish from Earth? But if you're thin and you eat less, your metabolism will learn not to waste energy. Meaning, once you cheat, you'll gain your weight back, and then some extra weight. How do you know all of that? He raised his head and stared at me. I did my research, I said, flexing my bicep muscles. Then I put my arm down when I heard heels tapping on the ground. The homeroom teacher entered, still wearing that tight costume as ever. I didn't believe I'd say this, but I missed seeing her. Welcome. I believe you all learned a lot during the vacation, she said. What vacation? Someone sarcastically asked, who happened to be Seiko. Midnight cracked her whip and clapped it on her hand, asking, Sorry, I didn't hear you well. I said, What a wonderful vacation, Seiko said, changing his sarcastic tone to a cheerful one. Now that you have practical experience, you know that a hero's life isn't all about glory and praise, and you have to deal with dark things, she said. Most of us nodded. She had a point, though. Heroes didn't only deal with robbers and murderers. There were more dangerous people, ambitious psychopaths. Kai was one of them. He had abused a 4-year-old child. I knew that my interference might change things for the worse in the future. But leaving a 4-year-old kid to be tortured for something that may or may not happen. I didn't think I'd regret it anyway. A hero needed to learn all of that during their first year. Except for Mineta. In canon, he learned the dark side of MT Lady. Now, for the first day, you'll tell your class how you spent the internship. Please, come and tell, she said as she sat at her desk. Students, one after another, started recounting their internship adventures. Too bad Mirio wasn't here. We'd have a good recap. My turn arrived. Usually, I'm an introvert. I'd spent most of my life either working out or in my bedroom. So, I may overtalk. I waved my hand and tightened my gaze. And so, as the Ant-Man had a hostage, and there was no way to save that lady, we knew the first hostage was going to die. And what happened after that? Asked another classmate. You know East Clintwood? I asked. It's classic. I mimicked a gun with my hand and shot a ray beam. I said as I reenacted the scene from memory. As I made the gun gesture, I unintentionally released my chi. I was a bit overexcited, like that friend who tells you about their fighting story and may end up accidentally punching someone in the group. My fingers glowed yellow before concentrating into one point. Oh shit. Nijire's eyes widened, and she threw herself to the ground. The finger-sized beam left me and hit the wall. Boom. The wall exploded. Luckily, I didn't charge my chi in a huge amount, or else something worse could have happened. I turned my head. Midnight's blue eyes were wide open, her lips slightly parted. I guess I may need to improve my storytelling. No hand gestures. Mind your students, Midnight, will ya? Another teacher yelled. A clay-like matter appeared on the wall, closing the gap. In no time, the wall was fixed. That was lovely, Midnight said. She stood next to me and patted me on the shoulder, saying, that was a nice story, but you should let your classmates tell theirs. But it's only the beginning, I complained. I still have yet to tell how I threw a fireball in his eye, and how Night I kicked him. We don't want you to set off the fire alarm, she said, pushing me back to my seat. She had a point. I sat next to Tamaki. This time, both of us were looking at the ground. I destroyed a wall. That was so embarrassing. As you can see, your classmate, Kenshiro, has developed a new move. Let's give him a round of applause, Midnight said, clapping her hands, trying to cheer me up. Now I missed the chance to speak about my adventures with the Yakuza. But Nijire will tell that anyway. Thinking about the Yakuza, they dealt with people easily without alerting the police. I thought about the building where underground fights occurred. I didn't believe their names were attached to the property. Now that I think about it, I can deal with them again and rent a warehouse without having my name on it. I raised my head, smiling. The rise of the world's greatest investor will begin. Kenshiro-chan, Midnight called me. When I looked at her, she raised her eyes from her phone. You have someone out of the class waiting for you. You have 5 minutes. Wondering who it might be, I stood up and walked out. As soon as I stepped out of the class, I was ambushed by a white-haired girl radiating cuteness. It was Eri. Big brother, you're here, she said, staring at me with her big red eyes. I smiled and patted her head, squatting next to her. Is Eri being a good girl? Eri is a good girl, she replied, nodding. Behind her stood the gloomy figure of Aizawa. I lifted Eri and looked at him. So, how has she been doing? I asked. She has been doing very well. Her power is more controllable, but not to a certain extent, Aizawa Shota said. Nice job blowing the wall. Ignoring his remark, I said, so you bring her with you to classes. She practically lives here, replied Aizawa. Legally, I'm her guardian. Are you happy with him, Eri? I asked the little girl. Aizawa-san is a very nice person. He doesn't hurt me and gives me a lot of candy. I looked at Aizawa. Surely, his appearance didn't match the description Eri had just given. But I guess there was a soft spot in every person. He sighed. Any improvement with your quirk? Why was he asking about my quirk? If I thought about it, my supposed quirk was improving at a very rapid rate. The new techniques, the higher energy, and physical strength I was getting. It was way faster than how a normal quirk would mature. Not really, I replied. Other than my martial arts and beam, I couldn't do much. I lied. I had a bunch of new ninjutsu in my arsenal and a few fighting techniques. I was also a few months away from the third circle mage, which would allow me to cast some nice spells. But with all of that, there was no chance I'd still stand against All for One, who could annihilate a city with one attack. I see. You may be able to learn one thing or two from him, he said, sighing. Who? I asked. All Might, he replied. I blinked twice and rubbed my eyes. All Might wasn't supposed to come here until next year to teach. Sure, I knew he was in the city with Midoriya to train him. But he shouldn't be in UA yet. What? I asked again. If things went well, you may meet him in your final exams, he replied. If things went well? I tilted my head. Well, it's a teaching matter. You don't need to know more than that. I thought about something as I looked at Eri. Her power was to rewind things into the past. If things went well, meant that they were thinking about using her to rewind All Might. But she's just 4, and she started to learn how to use her quirk. I couldn't ask the question since that would raise the question of how I knew. Well, it doesn't matter, I said, holding Eri by the ribs, trying to change the topic. Just take care of this ball of cuteness. She giggled. I will, Aizawa said. Now Eri, come back here. Your friend has a class. Chapter 41. After school and home, I went outside, excusing myself from socializing with anyone. I had business to attend to. Currently, I was standing under the veil of night, assuming the shady appearance of a dubious man. A bald, huge man stared at me. "You want to rent a warehouse, no paperwork included?" he asked, seeming suspicious. "And you don't want your identity linked to it. What are you going to store there?" "A few things," I said, sighing heavily. "That won't be cheap, you know," he replied. "I don't care what you're going to store here, but I'm risking my name for this. Would this ease your heart?" As I said that, a bag appeared from thin air, containing a substantial sum of money, around $250,000 worth in yen. The bald man opened the bag and sniffed the money. A happy smile took over his face, as if he had just gotten high. He looked at me and smiled. "So, how long do you need it?" he asked. 6 months, I replied. "If what I had in mind worked, then I'd make up that money in a couple of hours. I'd also pay you more if you keep people away from staying here." "How much are we talking about?" $10K a month, I said. This was the harsh price I had to pay to do illegal stuff. If only I were an adult and could own property in my own name, this wouldn't have happened. "Deal," he said, smiling happily as he extended his hand to me. I shook his hand. "I'm Rayo, by the way." "Dom," I replied. As he reached into his pocket, he grabbed a key and put it in my palm. "This is the key." "Okay," I replied, putting it in my pocket. "Let's exchange numbers." I had already bought a new phone, so I could do deals. After we exchanged numbers, I put the phone back in my system storage. I then departed from Rayo and went to my new warehouse. It was very large and had ample space. I reached my storage and brought out a series of talismans, magical ones from level 3 worlds. They were security measures that held spells within them. One of the spells was an invisibility spell that made whatever it covered invisible. The other was a barrier that would work against anyone but me. And lastly, there was a spell to alert me if anyone entered. A new notification rang in my ear. Plus 40K, someone had just bought stained saliva in bulk. Good for them, good for me. I brought out from the system a large tube with a tablet attached to it. I channeled my mana to it, and the tablet came to life. A series of unknown symbols appeared on it. It was another world's language. Luckily, with the knowledge of the second circle mage I had bought, I knew how to read them. A computer that works on magic. All right. I read through it and tapped with my finger. A subscreen appeared, telling me to input a DNA sample. A stray idea crossed my mind. What if I cloned Nijire and had a harem of her? Don't curse me. I shook my head, and I brought Night Eye's hair, putting it inside. DNA has been processed. Would you like to modify the chromosome sequences? Yes. I tapped on the tablet. A few options appeared. I modified the gender and slowed the metabolism. The last thing I wanted was a thin follower who looked like they didn't eat a thing, like Night Eye. Insert the cloning liquid, please. What a polite magical computer, I noted. I wondered how life would be in those level 3 worlds. They even had spaceships. It seemed to be a wonderful place. I inserted the liquid, and another option appeared. Choose the preferred physical age. 21. I chose. Maybe once I had enough money, I could buy her a legal identity. After everything was done, a timer appeared. Remaining time for cloning, 25 days. I stretched my arms and lay down. I grabbed my real phone, finding a letter from my mom, asking me where I was. I replied by saying that I was with a friend and now I'm coming back home, and I told her not to wait for me for dinner. I looked at my storage, and I thought that I had to turn at least 1 million into crypto. That would be a good way to launder it. But there was no need to hurry for now. I lay down on the ground, taking a long break. After replenishing my energy, I left the warehouse. I hid myself somewhere with no cameras and changed my appearance to the original one. Despite walking alone at night, I wasn't afraid of anyone or anything happening to me. I'm strong, and nothing could threaten me anyway. Making my way downtown, walking fast, faces pass, and I'm homebound. While I was walking for a second, I shook my head and looked to the left. Between 2 buildings, a giant man with a height of 2 meters, wearing a hoodie, stared at me. I couldn't see his face or hands at all, as they were pitch black, and it was so dark. As I thought of ignoring him and continuing with my walk, I could feel a killing intent directed at me. In no time, he vanished, and his fist appeared in front of me. That dude was fast for his size. I brought my hand up, pushing the wrist of the fist, making it shift its direction and miss my face. I then pushed my palm at him. The hooded man took it, gliding a few meters back. The hoodie was pushed away, revealing a pitch-black face. His brain was exposed, as there was no skull. A couple of wings appeared on his back. I could recognize the unique feature of no skull from the previous timeline. Nomu, I thought. Why would it attack me randomly on my way home? It's not time for questions anyway. I stared daggers at him, saying, "Come at me." The Noma stomped, cracking the ground with a stomp that teleported him to me. Chapter 42. Barely dodging the Nomu's fist, I used the body flicker jutsu, gaining momentum and appearing inside the narrow alleyway. I reached for my coat and shirt, taking them off slowly as I turned to face the Nomu, who was scanning the surroundings. The Noma shouldn't be this developed by now, and they don't have a high IQ. They were just killing machines created from dead bodies. That's what I knew from my previous life. "I'm here, you freak," I said as I stretched my arms and legs. A red aura started spreading from me, covering my whole body. The Noma slowly turned its head towards me, covering its head with the hoodie. Emitting a howling squeak, it charged at me, flying. I reached for its neck, turned, and threw it to the ground. This Nomu was definitely fast. He could be good training for my Sharingan. The number of Tomo in each eye represented one's mastery over the eye. The more I use it, the better I get. The Noma stood up, staring at me angrily. He squatted before vanishing. Instead of appearing next to me, he ran in a zigzag formation. Predicting his next move, I aimed my finger at him. Sunlight rays shone from my finger, illuminating the darkness before turning into a ray. The Nomu, jumping between the two buildings, got hit in the middle of his move. His arm blew off. "Now, we could have done this the easier way," I said. I ran at him with my snake footwork, doubling my speed and catching him off guard. The aura in my hand turned into lightning as I stabbed his other arm, severing it off. I then jumped, turned, and gave a side kick, sending the Noma flying. Something's wrong with them. I'm not supposed to be this strong. And they aren't supposed to be this weak, I thought as I landed. Well, it's not like they had high-end Noma now. If they did, then I would have been dead or badly injured. The Nomu emitted a howl. But then, something amazing happened. The arms that I had just cut regenerated immediately. The Nomu stood up, flipping onto his hand and closing the distance to me, joining his fists and slamming them on my head. Beating him is useless, I thought as I held his fist with my hands. I was physically superior, even without my aura, so I could push back. But this seemed to take forever. And how would I do anything against him if he could regenerate? Should I kill him? Maybe, even if I had to stain my hands. But the problem is, he would regenerate unless I found the part that could kill him immediately. I looked into the Nomu's eyes with my Sharingan, channeling chakra to them. This creature was alive, a mindless one without resistance. According to Buddhism, his mind chakra point should exist. I suddenly entered his mind, finding myself in an empty space with few flashes flying around. This was my second time using Genjutsu, so I had a better experience. As a mindless creature, Noma won't doubt anything. I put him in Genjutsu, where he was tied in a small room of 1 by 1 meter surface. Now I understood why Sharingan increases the speed of your brain. It's so that you can cast Genjutsu easily. I got out of the Nomu's mind space. Barely a couple of seconds had passed. I don't know how to do mind control on them, but surely there is a chance to scan their memory. Anyway, super regeneration was a good power to reconsider. I took some blood that had been spilled on the ground. This could bring me some good money if I sold it. As for the Nomu, I had to find a way to deal with him. I looked at him as he was in that daze. If I'm not wrong, if I gave him damage faster than he could heal, then it wouldn't be trouble to kill him. I could call UA's staff to deal with him. But that could possibly cause a butterfly effect, making future events happen sooner if the public found out about Nomus. That would mean I wouldn't have enough training. I had mentioned before that I hated gore scenes, but I had no choice. Or did I? I slammed my head as if I were stupid. I had bought a lot of ninjutsu that I had forgotten about the existence of Fuinjutsu, also known as sealing arts. I couldn't believe that I'd do that. I sat down in front of the Nomu and opened the system. I typed on both level 1 and level 2 channels that I was looking to buy sealing knowledge for 10k gold. That would be plenty for newbies. After I typed that, I stared at the Nomu. I could always seal him, and then use him as a puppet to train my Sharingan and Genjutsu. Now, time for the second training. Let me scan the memories of the Nomu. I stood in front of him and activated my eyes with the intent to see if he remembered anything. Tired face. I found myself in a space of memories and decided to scroll to the most recent one. A man covered in fog was standing on top of the building, which happened to be near the fighting location. Nomu. "You see this kid," said the man in fog as he handed his phone to the Nomu, showing him a series of pictures of me. "I need you to fight him, but keep him alive," said the so-called guy. Tired face. Getting out of the Nomu's mind, I took a huge leap that put me on top of the current building. I cast the spell of heat vision, trying to look for the fog guy. But he was nowhere nearby. Where is he? I muttered to myself. Why was the future League villain guy looking for me to get beaten? Could it be that All for One is after my Quirk? But how could that be possible? Without Ragdoll's quirk, he was just a blind guy.